panels that we've had over the last 5-6 weeks now. So let's go to the next one then, Rachel. All right, Think IT Association, we always have it highlighted in pink, just to foster professional growth and development through the power of networking and collaboration. And even in all these crazy times that we have right now, we are still committed to the power of networking and collaboration. So thank you everybody for being on. And I would, you can see we deliberately have it so that people can see the other people that are signing in. So it jogs your memory of somebody that you've not been in touch with for a while, and it prompts you to follow up with somebody and say hello and catch up. So please do that. You won't be able to talk on the Zoom, because the way that we've got it set up is the only way that you can communicate is either by sending a chat, and feel free to do that, or by following up with people afterwards. And our Link to Leadership program is still very strong, although things are kind of up in the air right now with the timing of, because it is very much an in-person program. But let's move on to the next one then, Minicoop. All right, barriers to entry update. As you can see, we have a lot of support for this program in town. It really has become a very special program, and it really is because of our support from our clients that have really helped this be a very special program. So I'm not going to go through all those beautiful logos on there, but those are all companies that support this program, and I thank each and every one of them. So thank you. All right, our golf event, we will be having it. It is on September the 14th. We're pushing it back. It seems strange to think of a big social gathering at this point in time, but hopefully it will be on September 14th. We just don't know which year. It could be like 3 or 4 years down the road, but it will be September 14th. We're committed to it. It might be a social golf event, or a social distancing golf event, I should say, where we're just going to play in twosomes and you have to drive your own car, and there's only 20 people allowed in the whole tournament, but we're going to have it anyway. We're going to have some fun with it. All right, let's move on. All right, a couple of dates to coming up with other virtual events that we have. As you can see, next week we have another esteemed panel of CIOs, and as you can see there, they're people that are pretty well known. Actually, Kim is not a CIO. Kim Skansen. She defected really to the business side of the house over there, and obviously still works very, very closely with technology. So we've got another great panel event next week for people to join. And then we have another one on May 8th, and we have not organized that one yet, but those details will be coming out here very soon. Okay, let's move on. I'm done talking here. We've got to get our esteemed panelists on the hook. So this amazing leadership program, most people know about it. If you don't, it's going to be a wonderful program that is designed for the most senior level of IT executives to really grow their professional development through being involved in this program. As you can see, there's some very big names involved in this program, and it really is going to be very special. We are partnering with the Disruptive Element with Paula Winkler and Laura Woodford of this program. Now, we've had to just temporarily shelve it because of this current situation, but we will most definitely going forwards with this program. All right, Rachel, let's move on. Real-time issues in the IT world of today. Well, there are a lot of them, and we've had a number of these kind of events, and we've had some very good feedback, and always something new that comes out of these. So we have a new and wonderful esteemed panel today that well, thank you very much, Rachel, for bringing up Mr. Brett Brunick, and I'll let each one of you introduce yourself before we get stuck into the actual questions, so that I can go and get my coffee. And I was a bit late this morning, so as you're introducing yourself, I'm going to wander around and go get my coffee. I did manage to get it on before I had to get things going, but I'm running 5 minutes behind this morning. Okay, so Mr. Brunick, let's start with you, and then we'll go on to Andy and Carissa. So Brett, if you'd like to introduce yourself, please.
Sure. Can you guys hear me?
Loud and clear.
All right, little audio test. Good morning, everyone. Brett Brunick. I am the CIO of TCF Bank, and been at TCF for 4 years now. Previous to that, I was in a large retail organization with a big red bullseye. And I'm looking forward to this conversation. We obviously have a lot going on in IT, but we have a lot going on with the healthcare industry and the financial the financial health of the country is drastically changing right now as well. So it should be a fascinating discussion.
I think it will be as well, Brett. Andy.
Good morning, everyone. Andy Delka, I'm the CIO over at Starkey Hearing Technologies. Obviously, feeling the pinch of the environment we're all feeling. We sell our devices through independent doctors of audiology and retail clinics. So obviously that we've seen an impact on that. So looking forward to sharing our perspective and what's been going on with us.
Thank you very much. Carissa.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Carissa Rollins. I'm the CIO for our commercial business at United Health Group. We are very engaged, obviously, in what's happening in the COVID crisis right now. So I'm pleased to be here today. I've been at United for 3 years, and prior to that, I was at some large retailers as well. Not Target, but different retailers. So great to be here, and thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on to the Slido questions then. And again, I'll explain this to the new people that are on now. As you can see, there are questions, well, you can't see yet, they've not popped up. But when they do pop up, which they have right now, I need to move my pictures down to the side. There we go. You can see the questions, and so some people have caught on already. You can do one of two things, one of three things. You can either check on the ones that are on the screen there right now, so the panelists can offer their opinion and insights on the questions. You can add a question, other people can check, or you can just sit back and listen and learn and have some fun. So let's start with the very top one then, and we'll give each of our panelists the opportunity to comment on each one of these questions. And of course, if there's any piggybacking from anything that's said, you panelists can most certainly do that. All right, so the very first question, let's start with Carissa then. What has your organization done to keep your employees engaged as they work in this new normal? And of course, you work in a company that's an absolute conglomerate that's very, very different than most companies, I would say, in the world. So it's a very, very unique company. So I think this is a great question for any company, but especially yours.
Sure. I'll talk about my team and then I'll expand a little bit. We have 2,600 people worldwide. So half the team is in India, about another half is here, and there's a small team in the Philippines working on the commercial IT. 66% of my team was work at home before I started. So we already had a really good work at home streak going. And then the rest of us went home, obviously, about a month ago. What we've done to keep people engaged, me as a leader, I do videos about every 2 weeks. I put a new video out and I talk about just what's going on at the top of the house, all the things we're doing with Health and Human Services, what we're doing to really help our members and our customers, and how what they're doing every day impacts our members both positively and as well as our customers. And I think that really helps people stay engaged, knowing that they're really on the front line, helping people stay healthy and get healthy, and all the tools that we put in place for them. So that's one thing we do. And then we do a lot of fun things. We have yoga twice a week at 7 a.m., virtual yoga. We do bingo games. We do virtual happy hours. I have one of those today. So we do all kinds of fun stuff like that as well, and that trickles down throughout the organization. So it's been good. I looked at my productivity metrics yesterday, and we're doing really well on the productivity front.
So I'll just ask you a follow-up question, Chris, before we move on. You said something about productivity. You haven't seen that change up or down. Well, it's, if the majority or a big chunk of your staff are already used to working remotely, that makes sense. But have you seen any change in productivity whatsoever?
We had a dip the first week because we struggled a little bit in India to get people home and get their equipment running right away, mainly because of infrastructure in India. Same with the Philippines. But once we hit that stride, no, it's actually, we've been deploying, and I'm sure you've seen the news on some of the things that we've done. We've been deploying new things every day quicker than we were even in the past. So I like the next question when we get to that on change management, because we've knocked down a ton of barriers on change management to just get stuff done. So, there's pockets of places where we look at it and we're like, what's happening there? And we go talk to those team members and say, what can we do to help you? What's happening? But it's been really good. I'm very happy. I was worried, but I'm very happy.
Okay, we'll get to the second question in a second, but Andy, let's go on to you then for the first question. Your organization done to keep your employees engaged in this new normal?
Yeah, I think it's been a really interesting shift for us. We were predominantly a in-office, business organization, being part manufacturing, part retail, part wholesale. Our IT organization was probably the best position to work from home, just in the nature of supporting the global footprint that Starkey has. I think much like Chris has said, the video piece, I've been doing videos to my team. We're doing live stream, virtual town halls, and getting that whole intentionality of reaching out, because you can't just see people. You can't just wander up to cubes. You can't wander into the break room. So the focus has really been around intentionality of those virtual happy hours, those skip levels, those one-on-ones, those opportunities to engage across the board, while doing those fun things like submit videos or submit pictures of your work from home setup. Who are your new coworkers? Who are those people that that you're working with? Lots of four-legged coworkers. Some surprise visits from those folks while you're on video. Some intentional. But yeah, I think it's been about our focus has been about intentionality and maintaining connection, and that's one of Starkey's core values and principles and feels of Starkey as a community and as a family. It's been using video. We'll talk about that when we get to the change management. But we went from a sporadic user of the collaboration technologies to living in them. And I think it's been an interesting change, and I think it's going to be one that's going to benefit us in the long run.
We'll shelve that for a second, the benefit question, because I think that's a very, very good question overall. And I'm going to throw that one out, even if it's not on the screen, because I'm very curious to know what you think the potential of what we think was Winston Churchill. What did he say? Never let a good crisis go to waste. Right. So we'll shelve that for a second. A good friend of mine, if you might be on today, reminded me that sent me a text the other day. Good old Winston, we'll fight them on the beaches. Anyway, so let's go on to Brett. Mr. Brunick, same question.
I would say very similar to what these folks have already described. We did not have a work from home culture in a bank. We did not have, the banks are full of a lot of still manual processes and paper processes and just a business that unfortunately was not built for a highly kind of digital and distributed world. So remarkably, we've pushed 95% of our workforce to work remote. The first couple of weeks were pretty tough. We rallied as an organization incredibly well, I think, like most organizations have. And from an engagement standpoint, we started off with, how to get just basic audio and meetings to keep going, to things like this where we're doing far more video, so you can stay connected with people, so they can see your face, and lots of the same things around virtual happy hours. We've got this, group of cultural kind of advocates that are helping the rest of the organization with staying connected with their teams and having fun and having happy hours, and that's been super helpful. Probably the biggest thing that we've done, though, is we've got our executive team far more engaged with the entire organization than we were pre-crisis, right? So we have manager touch bases and all team meetings via video all the way up with all of our executive on a weekly and bi-weekly basis. So we just had one of those this week where we've got 7,000, 8,000, 10,000 people on a live discussion with our executive CEO and presidents, and so that's helped tremendously, because we're dealing with a bunch of folks who want to see how we respond in a crisis, how we're leading, and they also want to see the human side of us. So to get to stay engaged with your leaders when their grandkids are on their laps and their dogs are running around, and you see that across the board, it's helped a ton.
It's interesting you say that, right? It's made it very, typically, especially, I was going to say especially with executives, maybe that's unfair to say, but you typically don't see into their personal life at all. There's no window in there at all. It's very much personal life and then work. but those lines have become a little bit blurry with this work from home thing, because you're getting a little window in there, and it's fun to see, and it makes it very real and very human. We're all people,
Yep.
and we all put our socks on the same way. Actually, I don't. I use it. But I'm not wearing any right now. My feet are a bit cold. I forgot to put them on. But this is a good segue, Brett. We'll stay with you. We'll give each one of you an opportunity to kind of start and finish. So let's stay on your soapbox, Brett, because I think the next question kind of plays into that with the whole change management piece. So something just popped up on my screen. So what shift have you seen in change management? This is the actual question where you can see the questions as well, right?
Yep.
So okay, great. So go ahead then, answer that one, Brett, if you would.
I have a feeling we're all going to say the same thing on this one. We probably took a 5-year leap forward on most of the change management culture. If you wanted to have use a crisis to your advantage, I think we're doing so. So, we had teams who would say, would literally through policy not allow their people to use collaboration tools. Clearly, we're past that one, right? We had organizations, discussions around operating model and agility and empowered self-forming teams. All this work around driving to this culture and operating principles and distributed workforces and collaboration, basically on every front. We can just check all the boxes because we are past almost all of those conversations, because you have to work this way. So we are, for context, we are in the middle of a $50 billion bank merger right now between Chemical Bank and TCF Bank, which will be called TCF Bank. We are in a systems conversion for all systems this year: HR systems, finance systems, core banking systems, front end, IVR, contact center, digital platforms. We go live in August.
Which August?
Yes, August. We'll be doing the digital conversion here. We're in pilot right now, and we're going to be going live and putting a couple 100,000 people through a conversion here in the week. And so we have not stopped any strategic initiatives. The entire merger of the two organizations is on track. Productivity is actually, as someone had mentioned, somewhat higher even in some places. I don't know about unit productivity. I don't know if unit productivity is higher, because we've got a lot of folks saying they're working 16 hours a day. But the organization is rallied around that and dealing with the financial crisis, which is clearly happening on the back of the healthcare crisis. Because as you guys can probably see in the news, there's this pretty tough economy right now. What matters to banking is actually shifting from revenue and customer acquisition to liquidity of banks and how healthy are the institutions. So on every front, we've had to respond to those things, the obvious ones of how do you deal with branches and keeping employees and customers safe. But on every front, we have been able to respond. So just this idea of speed, agility, responsiveness, collaboration is the only way we're keeping the organizations running and being brought together. So we are thrilled, because it makes this work that we were planning on doing with two cultures that haven't yet been integrated to come together in an integrated culture, because we have to. So it's been great, actually.
It's funny you say that. It's been great. So before I move on to you, Andy, before I forget, that's something I think that's appropriate to this question as well. My first round, I mentioned this yesterday, we had another Think IT panel event yesterday, a technology-based one, and it was a really interesting conversation, because a lot of it wasn't really based on technology. It was a lot of these very similar topics, but really from a technologist's standpoint, and not really leadership standpoint. But I told for the few people that were on yesterday that might be on today, don't let me bore you with the same thing. But my first round of golf on Sunday was with a local CEO of a big company, and also a CIO of a conglomerate that's here local as well. And this question came up, and the CEO said, "I feel stupid." I said, "Well, welcome to my world. I feel like that all the time. But why in particular?" He said because I was very old school, and I was actually looking at getting more office space because we're growing and expanding, and I'm not going to do that now. I had no idea people could be as productive as they are from home, and they are. So we're going to be creating a whole different work environment going forwards. The CIO actually said, I am very confident that my company will physically close offices because we spend millions and millions of dollars every year on physical offices, and there's just no need for it. So as you think about that, and it's going to be a very interesting world going forwards, because I think that will be a common theme for a lot of companies. Companies spend a lot of money on infrastructure, spend a lot of money on physical locations that people are realizing maybe we don't need to anymore. Andy, we'll move on to you. Same question for you.
Yeah, Richard, I think, a similar feeling. I think the biggest shift that I've seen in the change management side is all the energy that we used to spend in preparing to combat all of the reasons people were going to bring up, the reasons we couldn't do work from home or digitalization or make conversions. That pressure is gone. That headwind
out the window.
Out the window, because we have to. It's now been a shift of a conversation to what can we do, and that's great for us as organizations that come in to enable our business partners. The selling part is really gone, and now we can go to, all right, here's what we can do. So that shift from sort of negative feel to here's what's possible, here's what we can do, and the willingness to experiment and do pilots and try stuff. And really, go out and say, is this going to work? Is this going to be minimally viable enough for you to do what you need to do? Now that conversation it's the reverse. Now there's so much pull coming through. It's now, okay, how do we sort through some of the pull? So the change management for us has been really a blessing to see that shift, because now it's about what's possible and what can we do? And then are they willing to experiment with us and then move on? And that's cutting down cycle times on requirements and, the early debate, and we can just sort of get to the work, and it's helping people be a lot more focused.
Thank you, Andy. Brett, did you score 2 points there?
What's that?
Did you score 2 points? Did you hit it? Did you hit your bin?
I don't, I'm not going to answer that question. I'm sorry, I have a cold. I do not have the virus. I do have a cold. I do have a cold. So.
Well,
the downside of video is you get to watch me do all
that. Believe me, I've seen a lot worse things on video this last few weeks, as we all have. Carissa, this is obviously something that you're passionate about.
Yes, for sure. I'll give a couple of examples. When you're hearing the news and they're talking about the mandates from the federal level about who's going to pay for COVID tests and for care for people that have the virus and things like that, we're the biggest healthcare insurance provider in the nation. And we have 32 claims processing systems. And so every time the federal government says something, we have to figure out how to change our systems to react to that. So we did that within days when the federal mandate came down about what was going to be paid for by a member and what was not going to be paid for by a member. Now each individual state is making decisions about what the state wants the insurer to pay for versus the member versus the company. So for example, TCF Bank, I'm just going to make this up, I don't know if this is true or not, is maybe a self-insured group of companies. And what that means is they can even decide that they don't want to pay for the COVID test copay. So we have to modify our systems not only for the federal, but also the state mandates, and then whatever our individual 5,000 plus customers want to do across 32 claim systems. And so we've done that very effectively within days. It's been a great win because we've knocked down tons of barriers to make that happen. My team, again, super productive to get that done. The other thing last week in the news you probably saw is the Health and Human Services distributed payments to provider groups that are really hurting, that are likely going to go out of business, which is not going to be good for all of us. We were able to put up a website to distribute $40 billion in 2 days, which is amazing.
Wow.
That's like unheard of. Yeah. And so we got the call 2 Saturdays ago. And by that that Tuesday night, we started distributing payments into their bank accounts. And they were calling us on Wednesday morning, asking us what the money was for because it said Optum on it. And we were telling them that it was this $50 billion that the government had approved. So talk about no change management processes. It was like, let's just go and we'll figure it out later. So that was really great. We talk about now, how can we keep this momentum going and get out of our own way so we can do things faster?
Again, back to not letting a good crisis go to waste, because I think,
right.
Through this, we've learned things. I think it's, maybe this is too strong of a statement, but human nature is to first think, why can't I do it? And maybe it's not possible. But when that's not even an option, when you have to make it happen, you just figure out ways to make it happen. And the psychology around this time is fascinating to me. What's going to be even more fascinating as we return to the normal world, when we do, if we do, what the new normal will be. Because I think a lot of these things that we've learned, there's a lot of things that we can do in a very different way that's much more productive and a much more effective way to do it. So it's going to be interesting going forwards. All right, well, thank you. That's a great answer to that question. Well, I'm very happy to see Mr. Joe Topinka has joined us. When you put your questions up, you can either be anonymous, as you can see, or you can put your name up there. And for those of you that don't know Joe was here for a long, long time and is a very good friend, and was the CIO down at Red Wing Shoes for a long time before he defected out there to South Carolina. Is living the dream out there. And Joe's joined us again. He was very much part of Think IT when we first started years and years and years ago, about 12 years ago now. So I'm very happy to have Joe back with us, and I'm going to be inviting him to join one of our upcoming panels if he would like to do that. So there's the question: how are you thinking about what priorities your organization will focus on post pandemic? So let's start with you on this one, Andy.
Yeah, so I think the larger Starkey priorities are definitely going to be a little bit shifted. Our mission is to make sure people have the best hearing experience they can. And that was traditionally done in a very face-to-face, hands-on, whether we were doing training or we were doing engagement with our customer base. I think that part is going to shift now to being a far more virtual, far more digital experience, and how we can extend those services out without having to, get people on planes, because there's going to be this natural shift. It's being very concerned about doing that after this. So we're seeing that at an overarching telehealth type space from a business standpoint. When we reel it back in a little bit closer to the IT lens, the internal drive is about the same. It's about, how do we virtualize things? How do we simplify things? And then how do we make sure that we can move just as fast as the speed? I think we've given them a taste of what we can do from a what's possible standpoint. And we're seeing that going, let's go forward and let's do it differently coming out of this. Because I think every executive team is thinking about, well, was this a one-time event, or are we going to see this over a cycle? And how do we prepare our organizations to deal with the ebbs and flows? And I think that's where agility and speed and simplicity is going to be the big thing. So I think about our priorities have shifted from sort of things that were going to be long-tailed to things that are going to be a little more direct and upfront and sort of right in our faces, so that we can respond as the marketplace responds.
Thank you. Carissa, let's go to you on this one.
Sure. I mean, as you can imagine, from a commercial perspective, a lot of people are losing their health insurance right now because the companies they work for have furloughed them, laid them off, or are going out of business. And so what we're thinking about, are really from a member perspective, is how do we get them continuous care, even if the company that they work for, that we purveyor the policy for, has gone out of business. So one of the things we're talking about is our individual business. The nice thing about being part of a big organization is we have products all over the place. How do we get people into individual products that are affordable for them? And that really is, how do we reach them, right? How do we get to them and know that they're losing their job, or that their company that we previously insured is going out of business? So it's all about lead generation, telephonic, getting to them via email, things like that we haven't done in the past. Also, a lot of those members will end up in the Medicaid situation. So we're trying to develop tools that will help us make decisions about what products to help them get into post this COVID world. From a provider perspective, as you can imagine, nobody wants to go to the doctor anymore. And Brent, I was thinking about you the other day. I read this article about nobody wants to stand in line at the bank anymore either.
Nope. I will touch on that. I will touch on that next.
So, nobody wants to go to the doctor anymore. So we already had obviously a lot of telephonic and video type doctor options available. It has become a very top priority on getting products out there to our employer groups where they can actually have a virtual first offering for their PCP. And so I think that my mom is funny. Yesterday, she said that she had a video dentist appointment, my 71-year-old mom. And that is unprecedented. So that's how we think of things changing. So we're really thinking about all the products we offer, and then how do we make sure that we're ready when the pandemic is over to service the membership that we have, and service the provider groups as well that are also struggling.
So you're already preparing for that, Carissa?
Oh yeah, we talk about it twice a week.
Well, and I think that's a very important part of it. Companies and people have to prepare for the changes. Now, we don't know exactly what the changes are going to be, but I think the preparation, the companies that are most prepared are the ones that are going to be the most successful. Brunik, what's your comments on that question?
I was going to say it's not really for us. It's probably an acceleration, not of the shift that was already underway. As Carissa mentioned, I mean, nobody wants to bank in a physical world. We've been pushing this channel shifting, digitalization of our industry for the last 3 or 4 years. So clearly that's a lot easier right now because nobody wants to walk into a physical distribution center, whether you're on the small business or an individual consumer. If you guys have been paying attention to some of the programs that the government, similar to your challenge, Chris, around responding to the government, with the government, clearly our communities and our small businesses are struggling. So we've needed to get funds in the hands of of our small businesses. So 6 weeks ago, the government says we're going to give out a lot of money to a lot of communities and small businesses in need. None of the financial industry is ready for that. We don't have any capability to process all those loans, to accept all those loans. And the first meeting is, hey, we should do that. Get a piece of paper in the branch where everybody could fill out a small business application. That's not going to work. We built a digital front end and integrated it with the Small Business Banking Association and automated all of that through a bunch of APIs, which will actually go live today. The president signed it last night, so I was up at 11 o'clock last night after getting an email saying he signed it. So we will be giving out more money here today to the remaining set of folks in our communities who need these loans. But the point is we did all that in a digital way, right? We bypassed the traditional mechanisms associated with physical distribution and human contact, and did all of that both in gathering that information as well as getting the funds to those folks in a digital way. So now we have that momentum that we can do, because that strategy was already there. It was already kind of going 30 miles an hour. We're just now going 80 miles an hour. So, the small business executive team, we were on a call last night at midnight, and they were saying, hey, well, can we do this after this, or is this just a one-time, is this a one-time thing? Like, no, we don't have to go back. We don't have to go back. We can do all of this on an ongoing basis. And they're like, oh, this will be great. We don't have to do that. So I think it's from a tech standpoint, I'm super proud of our organization because we had built capability, engineering, technology, platforms, culture to be able to respond to these things. And now we've been able to help our customers in our communities to be able to do so. And now we're getting everybody going, this strategy of digitalization, let's make that go faster.
Yeah, it is. I laugh at that. Do we have to go back? And we're creating the new norm right now with being able to do things in such a way that people either didn't think was possible, or just, well, let's keep doing it the way we've been doing it because it kind of works. So again, back to the crisis not going to waste. Brett, let's go to you stay with you for the next question then. Mr. Larson, it's just the same number of checks, but we'll go down to yours in a second, Mike. So this is anonymous. How has the pandemic changed your organization investing in new talent right now? It's an interesting question. I haven't seen that one before. New talent. Let's start with you then, Brett.
First of all, we're just trying to figure out how to onboard people in a digital way in the short term. So, I think we had the typical reaction to, hey, we can't hire folks in the middle of this because we don't know how to onboard them, and how are we going to get them up to speed in a virtual world? We got through that pretty quickly to keep the onboarding of talent and the talent all the investments that we know we need to make, and kind of regroove those particular processes. I think we're probably still early on this one. If you think about like my last comment about kind of channel shifting, digitalization of the financial services industry, having capability to respond and be organizational agility, those types of things. I think what will likely happen is all those people and roles that we have been kind of advocating for. If you think about on our operating model conversations in the past, how do we get some of these folks who have those type of skills, those kind of customer experience centric digital skills? My guess is all of that stuff will be accelerated, but it's still kind of fairly early. I would say our organization is responding to the financial crisis as a result of the health crisis right now. My guess is in the next couple of months, the rethinking about the workforce will be a fast follower.
This is an interesting one because obviously this is the world that we live in right now. And a couple of things that I've been very pleasantly surprised with all of our consultants across the board, with the exception of just a handful that got let go, but the vast majority did not, are working from home, but also new consultants starting. They're starting remotely, and companies are they've become prepared quickly to onboard people quickly. They've adjusted very quickly, which has been very pleasantly surprising. I'm not sure that would have happened 10 years ago, but companies have adjusted quickly, and now it might be a little bit different for full-time employees, not really sure, but we haven't seen a decrease. Now, we've been lucky that we have a lot of clients that still need to bring on resources to get their projects done. Optum UHC have been very much one of them. So there's been an adjustment there, and we've seen a definite pivot to being able to onboard people quickly and get them productive quickly remotely. Andy, let's go to you on this one.
Yeah, I think it's same as Brett. We're early in that discussion about what does that talent strategy look like. I think the talent strategy post our recovery is going to be very different than the talent strategy we had going in. We were, again, a very sort of facility-based workforce, and I think that's going to be the biggest impact to our talent strategy, is going to be the openness to having people being in different locations, and that's going to be a big benefit for us, because as we all know, that the talent trading that goes on in the Twin Cities market has been a challenge for all of us, and I think opening up that openness to bring talent in from other locations and other parts of the country is going to be a big benefit. I think it's also going to be a shift in what kind of skills we're looking for, that these skills around agility and new thinking and doing different ways in this post-pandemic world, I think are going to be at a premium. And I think that's going to shift how we're all going to look at talent going forward. And I think it's a new opportunity for a lot of our partners to come up with interesting ways of doing strategic sourcing for talent, because it's not going to be the same way it was going into this. But again, we're really early. We're in that recovery and ensuring the company is safe and healthy. But that is a conversation that's already starting about what does our organization look like coming out of this.
And Andy, you're touching on a really good point there, because if there's one piece of advice that I would give to any hiring manager, it's look at the way that you were viewing the talent pool. Because if you are able to have certain resources with certain skills work remote, you times the pool that you're looking at by 1,000. And as you said as well, the talent trading, I think is the term that you use. Let's face it, there's a lot of stealing and swapping. It's just a very dog-eat-dog market for top talent. And we have a couple of clients, but before this, and we had actually one of the one of the leaders, was on a call yesterday, that they've always worked 100% remote and they're very effective, and they're able to attract top resources because of that, because they have a much bigger pool to pull from. So I think people will look at this differently. Carissa.
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, we're also evaluating obviously the go forward plan, but what I will tell you is we have a lot of projects and programs that we have to keep moving and get going on. And so we've been leveraging our external partners, our consultant group partners, to get resources onboarded. We are not, hiring employees right now, but we are bringing on consultants to help us get through this time.
I think that's a great idea, by the way. Fantastic idea.
Yeah, I'm sure. And to your point, Richard, I'm sure, your team is onboarding a lot of folks at Optum right now to help us get through this. So that's what we're doing. And the other thing, we have a team in Ireland, and I actually was on the phone with them last week trying to understand what's happening there. And they also have, we have a new project starting up, and we're going to look at Ireland to do that because they have lots of remote capabilities there and resources available. So we're looking across the world, as we always do, for resources. We also have hired from wherever. I have a guy who, one of my chief architects is in Salt Lake City. I've got one in Chicago, so we're used to that whole hire the best talent wherever they happen to sit mode. But right now we're on a little bit of a freeze on hiring people, but we are bringing on consultants to help us get through.
Makes sense. Okay, let's stick with you, Carissa, for the next one then. Mr. Larson, most of you know Mike. Mike's been involved with Think IT and our board of advisors for many, many years. So thank you, Mike, and thank you for sticking with us and your questioning here. So what's your strategy? This is a very interesting one because it makes it very human, especially with the second part. What's your strategy for return to work, given the ongoing requirement for social distancing and the schools that continue with distance learning? So let's start with you then. It's good to stay with you, Carissa.
Yeah, we actually just talked about this last night. There's a whole, obviously, as you can imagine, team of people going through this. It's going to be a facility by facility return, right? But what we really want to make sure is that people feel safe when they return to work. And we haven't figured all of that out yet. We haven't given the mandate. As you can imagine, we have call centers. We sent everybody, all of our call center agents home, right? And the call centers have pretty close proximity. So we want to make sure that we have a good strategy that people feel safe when they return to the office. But I don't know if everybody's going to return, right? I think to the real estate strategy, we already were really looking at our real estate strategy because we were busting at the seams and trying to figure out what to do. And I think this is going to be the opportunity for us to say, maybe we just leave some people at home because we're productive and it works out really well. And we'll have to figure out the rest. Nurses, we sent a lot of our whole nursing staff home. Maybe we leave them at home. They've been really good at working from home. So we'll see, I think is the answer. We're considered a critical business. So some of our executives are actually in the office every day. I'm not one of them. As you can see, I'm in the man cave in the basement, but some of our executives at the very top level are there every day, and they're trying to figure out the best approach to get us back to work.
Thank you. Andy.
Yeah, so because we're manufacturing as a big part of what we do, we've been in business and open and just focused on keeping minimum staff on site to support manufacturing. I think our return to work strategy is much like Carissa's, is it's going to depend on function and role. I think some of the roles will maintain a work from home as a permanent option. I think we'll see a lot more flex and a lot more variability about, and again, ensuring that we take care and protect the safety of our employees is number one, and also protecting our manufacturing capability. So I think we'll see a shift. I don't think it'll go back to what it was 3 months ago in terms of what people's desk structures and density looks like. I think that would just be, to Brett's point, a silly going back standpoint. And just, we're going to have to rethink space. We're going to have to rethink how projects and teams work together. But we're going to see the spectrum from folks that have to be on site to support our core manufacturing to those that can stay completely remote because, frankly, they're more productive, they're more focused, and it works. And we've taken that question of, is work from home, are people really working? I think we've eliminated that question in a lot of ways.
But I predict there'll be a lot less hugging and a lot more foot tapping when greetings occur.
Mhm.
What do you think, Brett?
No, our stance at this point is we are not in a hurry. For all the reasons we've described. I mean, we're pretty productive. Obviously, we've got the safety where we are today. It's much safer to have your workforce sitting in calls like this than getting back into highly dense, collaboration spaces in offices or things like that. So, we are going. Obviously, we're monitoring the states that we do business in, and as you guys probably have in many of your businesses, it kind of depends on what each governor decides to do in each state and what's the situation, kind of the situation that we have to respond to in Michigan or Minnesota or Illinois or all the different states that we do business in. But from a general strategy, we are not in a hurry to do so. We have proven that this model works. And so we're going to stay kind of working remote longer and then have a slow roll back. Even if they say we can, we're going to try to say why and for what critical functions, maybe where productivity is more impacted, which is a small set of processes in banking, payments teams or operations teams, things like that, where those processes are just not geared to remote workforces. But we're going to try to keep everybody safe and working from home as long as we need to.
I'm going to take this in a slightly different direction because back to the round of golf I played on Sunday. So the CEO said, he admitted I'm old school, but he said, I have to say I miss the social interaction. I like wandering around and saying hello to people. So how do you comment with that? Because there's a pendulum, right, that's swung all the way to the one side now because we have to. How far back does the pendulum come? Because I would argue that for most people, not everybody, because some people prefer to be on their own and they're not very social, but for most people, they like that human interaction. I'd ask each one of you just to make a quick comment on that. Is there a value to that human interaction relative to your production from home?
Yeah.
So Carissa, go ahead, Brett.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. You start then. Go ahead. You're on a roll.
I was just keeping our little rotation going there.
I've lost track of the rotation.
Switched up your process halfway through.
Yeah.
We can't lose that. I mean, I agree with you. We can't go. Those corporate worlds are notorious for swinging from one end to the other. I think what we're talking about, obviously, all the things that we're doing now digitally. You can do a lot. You can do a lot digitally that mimics that experience. But I'll just tell you, I don't like it. I mean, I have no problem with the productivity and doing it, but I miss people. I get my energy from people. And so there's not the same amount of energy given, I think, unless you have that human interaction. And so we're talking about how do we do that, obviously, for now in a digital way. But then how do we step into recreating that in a safer way when we bring folks back, maybe rotate some people in and out, maybe have, distance spacing in a physical location, just so we can get some, take a team of 30, 40 people and say, rotate through a couple times if we can officially come back into the office, but so they can see each other again and they can talk to each other again, no different than I'm doing with my friends in my outside my house, sitting on my yard, 6 feet apart with all the friends that I haven't seen for a while. Kind of do that equivalent inside of corporate so we can keep some of that human connection between folks and some face-to-face. And then obviously we can slowly, gradually kind of build that back in, but that could be a while. So we're going to try to be gradual about it, but you can't replace some of that human interaction just with digital. I think we've learned that as people and as industry. So we're going to try to introduce that as much as we can back into the process.
Maybe you should create a digital survey, Brett, for people that want to stay home or people that want to come back to work.
Oh, we don't need a survey. It's pretty clear.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of folks chomping at the bit saying, I want to come back. I want to come back. I get asked a lot, why aren't you in the office? Why aren't you in the office? We're an essential business. We can be in the office. I'm like, if I show up at the office, 300 people will be at the office because they want to go into the office. So
Yeah.
we know who they are.
Yeah. Carissa, what are your comments on that topic?
Yeah, similar. I think, you know, I'm like Brett, I'm an extrovert and I get my energy from people. I love New York coffee mug every day. I usually spend at least 1 week a month there with my team, and it's been hard for me to be home. But then I have members of my team that are like, we love this. We want to stay home all the time. We don't ever want to come to the office. So I don't know how it's going to work out in the end. In my mind, I think, you know, when I think about UHC and our executive group, I think that what'll happen is the executives will end up coming back into the office, but maybe our teams will stay home more. We have a big tech presence here in the Twin Cities too, and we'll just see. I don't think there's a plan yet on that. And if I asked everybody, I would say some of them will say we want to come in, you know, a couple days a week. Maybe that's what we do is we start rotations, like team one, because we're set up that way for workspaces to be mobile. So maybe one team comes in, you know, 2 days a week, another team comes in 2 days a week. That's some of the things my leadership team and I have started talking about. India is a whole different story. Like, I have no idea what's going to happen there, and we have to start thinking about that as well. I'm sure all of you have contractors there, but we just don't know what's going to happen there. And we were already crunched on space in India. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there.
Yes, it will be. Andy, anything to add to that, or do you want to go to the next question?
No, I think we're going to follow the same line. I think the leadership team and leaders will be in the office more, and I think we'll do a flex or a pull in for project teams to create some connection, but create a lot of flexibility at where the work's getting done. But I think the leadership teams will be back in the office.
Well, and you know, it's a good segue into the next question, because I think everything starts at the top, and you know, leadership really will make the decisions with how this new world's going to be in terms of in the office and not in the office. But it will be very interesting. So, you know, who wants to start with the next one? Because I've lost the rotation. Brett, you completely threw me. So let's start with.
It's not me.
Let's start with Andy. You're right in the middle, Andy. So the next question. So what shift have you seen in executive/business partner conversations?
I think the first and foremost has been the frequency of those. And the shift from it being a lot of it being an afterthought to now being a forefront conversation about what can we do, how can we do this, this openness to a different way of thinking. Some of the things that we probably have all individually been preaching for years upon years are now the conversations that they want to have. So I think the biggest shift has just been they're new to this conversation, and so how do we be good stewards of this new conversation and not overwhelm, but also be there as that strategic advisor and be there as that sounding board, so we can have these conversations at idea creation and lead them through a path that's a lot faster. And so that's the biggest shift that I've seen, and it's been a welcome shift. And I think it's cutting out a lot of cycles and waste that we've been seeing in the past. So that's the biggest shift I've seen.
Do you think, Brett, this is for you in particular, do you think that, and I think no doubt it's different for different companies depending on the industry, let's face it, some business executives are kind of scared by technology, don't really understand it, they rely on the true technologies to tell them what to do. Do you think this has brought them closer to technology and how it truly helps the company?
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't want to repeat myself, but financial services, I joined financial services because it was a laggard in kind of technology and kind of customer-centric thinking and how to, the power of technology. And, it's been tough, right? I'll just be honest with you. There's still some old school thinking in our industry. And, as I mentioned at the Small Business Association discussion this last night, we are opening up people's eyes to what you can do with really strong technology and really strong technology talent. And as opposed to kind of naysaying or wondering, is it ever going to happen? Is it really real? Again, those conversations are largely over. And they're basically saying, how do we do this, right? How do we submit 7,000 applications a minute to make sure our customers get their small business loans? Well, you only do that with technology, and I'm explaining APIs and also,
Yeah.
they're like what is that? What is an API? We can use APIs to get into the government? Like, yes, you don't have to have humans do that, and people do that. So they're seeking our counsel, and our teams are, I don't do this every day. My whole team does this every day. How do we help the contact center who is used to, we have Philippine presence, and their business continuity plan did not account for how do we keep that whole thing up and running? And yet most of those contact center teams are typically kind of business managed technology groups, and they don't really come and give us a call unless it's an urgent. Now they're saying, I can't run the contact center because the Philippines and my outsource provider isn't prepared. Please help us. What should we do? How should we do this? And all these conversations about, hey, you should give us a call so we can make sure that's instrumented. We know what performance of that connectivity looks like. We have reliability. We got it. Now they're going, what do we do? How do we do that?
Right.
And so it's a fairly tactical discussion today about business continuity and service reliability. But because all of those things are being done and our team is responding in such an amazing way, now we're getting them to be, great. What should I do next? So I think we have an ability we had a fairly strong influence to the agenda and the approach, but I think it's even stronger because of how we've shown up in the last 3 or 4 months.
And back to that question of benefits out of this crisis, and I think that is likely going to be one of the benefits to a lot of organizations, is there's going to be a much better understanding of the true value of technology in an organization. Now, going to Carissa, I mean, Optum, UHG, United Healthcare, it is a technology-based company. So, it's kind of probably a different conversation for you guys than it would be for a bank. So how would you respond to that question?
Well, first of all, I think from an executive level, there's always been an appreciation for IT, but there seems to be even more of an appreciation for IT. So our CEO, Dave Wickman, does every day a 9 o'clock call. He started this a week after the COVID crisis started for the entire organization. And every week he has a rotating group of folks that come in and sit with him for 15 minutes. And John Santelli, who's our CIO, our top level CIO, spoke with him on the call the other day. And he was just very appreciative of the fact that we were able to get all our call center people, all our tech people, everybody they needed to get home. We got them home within 3 days and working, which was amazing. And he talked about how, he really didn't pay attention to the business continuity plans all that much. He's like, oh yeah, we have those, right? But now they're very much at the forefront of what we're talking about. And so I think from an executive, business partner conversation level, we're doing our best to support them in behind the scenes, but also make sure that we're capable and ready for anything that may come at us, in the next 6 to 8 months, depending on if there's a second wave or not. So it's been great. It's been really good to have him talking to everybody every day at 9 o'clock. And
well, thank you very much.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, you finish your train of thought, Carissa.
I was also going to say, Mr. Whitty is with the World Health Organization trying to develop a vaccine as well. So we've loaned out one of our top executives from Optum to go develop a vaccine. Hopefully that happens soon.
Well, we're at time, and I know people probably got 8:30 meetings. I can't thank you enough, our esteemed panelists, Chris, Andy, and Brett, for talking with people today. I took a lot from it, no doubt everybody else did, and I think there's some common themes that have come out of this. And for me, I think probably the most important thing for the IT world in general is just how important it is to organizations across the board, regardless of industry, and how quickly the IT organizations have been able to pivot to truly help their businesses. So, again, it's a crisis, but there will be some good things learned from this. And I appreciate all of your input, and thank you everybody for being on the meeting this morning. And as always, thank you to Rachel and Emily for organizing this. Thank you everybody. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks, Richard.
Thanks, Richard.
Take care.